Greetings. Thanks for watching. Karen Kuei here. We're going to explore another Feldenkrais lesson over the course of 4 weeks, broken down into little bits so that you can digest and assimilate. And the topic of this series is support. So what does support mean? Well, there's all sorts of ways that we can feel supported by our friends or by the chair we're sitting in. But what we're really talking about is biological and in the realm of physics. So as biological organisms, we thrive in this gravitational field, and it's the reason that we evolved into creatures with skeletons, because our skeletons is what are what support us in gravity. And without the ability to find or sense support, we shatter, we break, we lose health, we lose vitality, and we fail. So the Feldenkrais method is really a movement science. It's not a fitness form. It's really a science. It's the scientific way of looking at movement through the lens of physics and the reality of the fact that we're bipeds in this gravitational field. So I have a teacher who likes to say an organism's sense of safety is directly proportional to its ability to find support from the surface that it's on. So here's an excellent example of biological adaptation that this creature has to the gravitational field, because most snakes don't keep themselves upright, do they? They do have a spine, and their spine moves them on the land. But this snake has discovered a way to use its length in an ingenious way in an unusual situation. So that is the definition of the Feldenkrais method, what I just said. An organism's ability to use gravity in an ingenious way when it's in an unusual circumstance. That's what makes life creative, and it's what helps us to succeed and to be able to swim upstream when things get tough. So let's take a look at some other pictures of support. So starting with this guy here. So where is the support for I think that's a walking pole, or maybe it's a ski pole. Where's that support coming from? So you might say that that's coming from his hand, or maybe you think it's his elbow or his shoulder. I would say that his whole system is organized to support that weight out in front of him and to balance it. And that if he weren't receiving support through his feet, through his pelvis, and through his spine to support his shoulder, he would fail. So here's another picture over here of this guy. And he has support coming from underneath him through his feet, and then he's also being cantilevered by the wire that's around his back. But the wire that's around his back is around his low back, and it's not going to support his spine to be in vertical the way it is if he's not getting the ground from the ball, the force from the ball, and driving it up into his hip joints and supporting his spine in an almost horizontal position. There's another one down here. So anyone who rides or knows anything at all about riding knows that a good seat is the most important part of riding. And what a good seat means is that your sits bones are very sensitive to the support of the horse underneath you. And any movement that the horse makes is reflected in your sits bones, so that you're constantly balancing and negotiating balance in this postural sway that is married to the horse's sway. And then the other picture here. So where is she receiving support? Where's the place she's receiving most support in this picture, do you think? Is it through her sits bones, or is it through her feet or her hands? I'm just going to leave that question for you. And so ultimately, if we can thrive, if we can develop our ability to find support at any moment, we become capable of doing things like this, where we're so attuned to the moment and to where the support is right now and right now and right now, that we can do extraordinary things. And that includes with our lives. This is not just a physical movement improvement technique. That's not what it is at all. It's about living better in a human body on the earth and living out our human dignity. So that said, this lesson is called Finding Support to Lengthen the Leg. A little preamble, you may need a small pillow. I like to also use, this is two things, I like to use a yoga block or a pillow. You don't need a yoga block. And I put a towel on it to make it cozy and comfy. And a strap we'll actually need probably next week. So you may not need to worry about the strap now. Yeah, so initially, please come down onto your back. So we've had this idea of support as you settle yourselves down onto your backs, and I adjust the camera here. Where's the place that you feel the most support as you lengthen on the floor? And how do you identify a support? Do you identify support as weight? Do you identify support as contact? Or do you identify support as a sensation of letting go into the support, of using the support to create or to undo tension? Just sensing which place in you feels like it's surrendering weight most completely to the ground and is basically feeding off of that support. Then please bend and stand both your legs. Your feet are on the ground about hip width apart. And just imagine that your mat has a wrinkle in it and it's bothering you in the bottom of your feet and you want to straighten it out. And the way it needs to be straightened is it actually needs to be drawn towards you a little bit. So you're going to move your legs in such a way as to draw your heels towards your pelvis, but your feet aren't going to actually slide on the floor. So you can see that as I do this movement, something happens in my pelvis by pulling my feet towards me. My pubic bone goes down in the direction of my feet, and my lower back goes away from the floor towards the ceiling. So my pelvis is tilting. We've done this before in this manner. So now slow the movement down. And now cut the effort that you're using with your feet in half. Remember, this is not exercise. This is not calisthenics, and doing it harder or more times or faster or better is not the answer. You're interested in learning, which means that you're in the state of not knowing. Because if you think you already know, then what can you learn? All right, let's do the opposite version now. So what if I want to push a wrinkle on my mat away from me? It's the same kind of movement. You're pushing the feet away, but they're not sliding on the floor. And in this case, the pelvis goes in the opposite direction. My lower back flattens and then comes back to the beginning. and flattens and comes back to the beginning. So now go back and forth between pushing and pulling, pushing your feet towards you, pushing the floor away, pulling your heels towards you. And feel how your pelvis is moving and using the ground, and how the contact between your pelvis and the ground is changing. It's not in a stationary place like it is under your feet. So the support starts at one end of your sacrum, at the back of your pelvis, and moves up a little bit. So the support is constantly changing. That's what you want to pay attention to. And now let's add something else on. Please draw your knee to your chest and comfortably hold on. If it's not comfortable to hold on without a strap, please use a strap. Please don't think that this is a stretch, because it's not. So please don't drive your knee as close as you can into your chest. Just find a comfortable place. You can interlace your fingers around the front of your knee or underneath your knee. It should be easy and comfortable, a place that's not arduous. And then just holding your knee, I'd like you to continue with the movement of pulling your heel towards you and pushing your foot away. Same movement. The foot does not move, but the pelvis is now moving with this one hip in a flexed position where your knee is closer to your chest than the other one. And if you tune in, you'll notice that what's happening is a very small movement inside your hip joint. Your leg's not moving. Your pelvis is moving over a stable femur. The femur is the thigh bone, and it's shaped like the number 7. And at the very tip of the short side of the 7 is the ball that fits into the socket of the pelvis. So right now you are rolling your pelvis over your stable ball, or femoral head as it's called. So now please lower your leg and switch to the other side. And I'm going to have you pause your phone here. Oh, no, that's okay. Never mind. And do some on the other side. Now, you're not doing this as hard as you can. You're not drawing your knees in as much as you can. It's not a calisthenic. You're not pushing and pulling between your hand and your leg. Everyone is in agreement here. Everyone agrees and are working together like a corps de ballet. So we're moving the hip joint here in an effort to create some awareness about lengthening the leg. Remember, the lesson is called Finding Support to Lengthen the Leg. All right, so now that we're going to change to the second position, which is on our sides. So that's where you have the pillow for your head and an optional pillow underneath your waist, and optional strap if you think you might need it, although I don't think we're going to need it for this version. Now you're going to start with your knees one on top of each other. And see the difference between opening your legs, how little support you feel, and having your knees up too high so that it's a strain and that your lower back rounds. And see if you can find a middle place where your knees are at right angles and your hips are at right angles. And then please put one hand on your front of your knee and one hand on your rump. And simply slide the top knee forward into your fingertips, keeping your ankles together. So it's just a forward movement. You can see how my knee is jutting further forward. I hold my hand out here. It's coming into my hand and away from my hand. Yeah. You'll also feel that the back of your pelvis is moving. So This is a similar movement. Can you tell the difference though? Now we're moving the leg on the pelvis rather than moving the pelvis on the leg. Still is happening in the hip joint though. Starting to get some awareness of where your hip joint is. Now put your hand on the top of, you can rest your other hand if you like, of your pelvis, and you'll feel a bony, sticky outy bone. That's called the trochanter. Trochanter means to run in Latin. And it's the bend in the 7, the angle of the number 7 that the femur bone is. So you'll also notice that there's another one of these on the opposite side, and you may feel it rolling on the floor. So you're rolling over that support forward and back. You can feel yourself roll off the front of it, and you can feel yourself roll off the back of it. As you start to get comfortable with the movement and feel how far you can roll in either direction, you're also going to begin to notice that other parts of you might be moving. Perhaps your head is rolling into the ground. Perhaps you can feel the bottom side of your waist, the side of your waist that you're lying on, rolling forward and back. Perhaps you can feel that if there was an arrow pointed out the front of you, the arrow is turning towards the floor and back to straight forwards. Or maybe it's rolling straight forwards and then it's actually rolling up to the ceiling a little bit. Good. So please lift up your head, push your roller away, remove your pillow, come onto your back, and sense what you notice about the two sides of yourself. Which side feels longer or warmer, or like it has more volume or more continuity. And then please take time to do the other side. So you'll roll yourself onto your other side. Actually, let's see. Yeah, roll yourself onto the other side. Set yourself up with your pillows or not, your strap or not. Finding the sliding movement. I'm just going to quickly give you a thumbnail sketch here. Finding the sliding movement. Finding the top trochanter. Accessing the straight through to the bottom trochanter, so you start to feel yourself rolling forward and back. Sensing how the head moves, how you're getting support from the surface that you're on, that your head is on, the surface that your ribs are on, the surface that your trochanter is on, the surface that your top leg is on. Are you helping yourself by pushing the bottom knee into the floor when you slide back? So those are all things to work on the other side, and then do come back onto your back and just sense how you feel. Thanks for watching. See you next time. To be continued.